Good morning. I'm Chuck Bargeron with the University of Georgia Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health, and I'm going to give you an update on the EDDMapS program, the IveGot1 program, and on the ECISMA website. So I'm going to start off with EDDMapS. Overall, EDDMapS is almost at 6 million total records. We've got over 100,000 registered users and over 31,000 reporters. We're now tracking over 5,200 species system-wide. And we're focusing on building better interfaces for having these reports coming in from iPhone, from Android, and through the web. In the last year, we've really seen an increase in web reports, as well as, kind of continuing on with the iOS and the Android reports, staying pretty steady from year to year. And we've also majorly increased the amount of data we're pulling in from our naturalist. We averaged 418 reports each day in the last year, and that was an increase of 147 compared to the previous year. And looking across US and Canada, there's definitely some hot spots where data is coming in Utah and South Florida, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and some areas in Ontario. And these are really the areas where the system has been fully embraced and is really being used both by the public and by agencies. But there's a good light blue covering a good part of the US and Canada. And I think that's what's really important, that we keep that piece moving, and implementation will continue to grow. Again, looking by state, I think this may be the first year that Florida fell off of the top 10 list. But I don't think that's all negative, because it's showing the increase of use for areas and states outside of Florida. We're continuing to increase the usefulness of the EDDMapS Pro and doing revisits to populations, to infestations, and showing that change over time. Obviously, Utah and their weed coordinators are really embrace that and are doing a lot of work in that area, but we're starting to see that pick up in other areas as well. Focusing more on the IveGot1 platform and what's going on in Florida. Last year, data kind of stayed the same. We saw a little bit of a decrease in species, but then an increase in number of reporters, and an increase of web reports, and then iPhones and Androids stayed about the same. We had a little bit of a peak last year on Android reports, but overall, data is consistently coming in Florida, and things are being done with that. Looking statewide, here's where the pockets of data are coming in, and some of the areas where there's not as much data coming in is also where some of the ECISMAs are not quite as active. Looking at what species have been reported in Florida, we had a big increase of python reports in the last year. And then looking at the list, it is mostly animals at this point. So less plant reporting going on, and a little bit more of the animal reporting, a tick up in that. We still get a lot of data that is imported in from FWC. Well, they provide us that data on a monthly basis, but we're also starting to import more and more data from our naturalists, that research grade data. So we have that data to incorporate into EDDMapS. And then here are some of the folks doing the individual reporting. Pretty good breakout in terms of where the data is coming from. We're still getting a good bit of bulk data coming in, making up about 40% of the data coming in, but then web and iPhone, and then that API data, which is data coming from our naturalist at this point, to fill in that. I won't To remind everybody that the EDDMapS dashboard is up and fully running. You can go into My EDDMapS and then go into dashboard, and there's a My Dashboard, a Verifier dashboard, as well as the EDDMapS dashboard. And all of these reports that I'm showing, you can access at any time through the EDDMapS dashboard, and you can go in and change the time period and even go down to a county level to view that data. And here's just an example of the My Dashboard, looking at more of what you've reported through the system and being able to get a little bit more information about that. On the smartphone side, we had a good increase. We've hit over 50,000 downloads of the iOS app this year, and around 9,000 of the Android app. And we are planning a big update of the IveGot1 app in the next year. And that goes to what I mentioned briefly last year. We have almost at this point now finished the new IveGot1 website. And I'm looking for some feedback. So if anybody is interested in helping us with the feedback on the IveGot1 website, the hope is to have a website that's a little simpler, easier to use, and more focused on the public than the EDDMapS website is, and just have a way for people to go in and quickly view the high impact species and make reports of them. And this is a mock-up of what that new website is going to look like. Again, kind of really focusing on the outside and the general public. And as we are wrapping this up, welcome some input, and we'll create a team that can talk about how we make sure this meets our needs. The Everglades Invasive Species Management Area website saw some good traffic in the past year. We've almost hit 1 million page views since the site was launched 11 years ago. We had about 73,000 users last year, and we're starting to see a pickup in traffic on a monthly basis. We always kind of have this up and down, but we're still kind of averaging about 10,000 page requests each month. Again, like we were seeing on EDDMapS reporting, a big interest in the wildlife. And here are the most popular pages. This was very similar to last year, although lionfish did make the top 10 as part of this year's report. Social media, we actually lost a few followers on Twitter, but we have not had any activity on Twitter since last year's summit. Our Facebook has increased a little bit, and so I'm sure there was an opportunity here on both of those platforms to continue to grow and increase that reach. Looking at EDDMapS overall, what we have focused on in the last year or so is really getting the EDDMapS as one platform. So there's no longer, we're slowly retiring the regional apps and the regional web pages and just focusing on one EDDMapS app and one EDDMapS website. The IveGot1 app is going to be redone in the next year as part of our support from FWC. And we're continuing to improve and expand the EDDMapS Pro app as well as the WildSpotter interface. So with that, I think we're going to go to the next outreach presentation, and then I will be available for any questions or clarity on any of this. Thank y'all very much.